No, we won't.
Hang on. Hang on. You're one-legged man. Go ahead.
All right, we'll call the meeting of the Yelm City Council of March 24th, 2020 to order, and we'll do so by doing our salute to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk is listening in, but Grant will take the roll, please.
Councilmember Blair? Here. Councilmember Carmody?
Here.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
And now I'm out of order, aren't I? Councilmember Stillwell?
Here.
Councilmember Wood?
Here.
Councilmember DePinto?
Here.
Councilmember I was doing so well. Kaminsky?
Here.
And Mayor Foster?
Here. We also have present Community Development Director slash IT person for the night, Grant Beck.
City Clerk.
We also have online Brian Bunker from Parametrics, Pat Hughes from Public Works, and City Administrator Michael Graham. We don't have anybody from the public here tonight, although we didn't close it off. The governor's declaration takes effect shortly after his declaration, but people were still able to come. If they were, we were going to let them do public comment from a safe distance. We all are adhering to the safe distance protocols. Councilmember DePinto's taking it up a step. We still recognize you behind that mask. And we believe that we're all set to go. So we need an agenda approval.
Move to approve tonight's agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have the agenda. We have no special presentations. We have no one here to do public comment. The consent agenda was sent out in your packet and has minutes and the vouchers in it.
I move.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have that signed up. And so now we launch right into new business, which is the professional services agreement with the wastewater treatment facility. And we're going to have Pat give us a overview on this and bring us to an action item for the council.
Okay, so hopefully everybody can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, good evening, council. We have before you much talked about the professional services agreement from Parametrics Incorporated for the design of phase 2 upgrades to our water reclamation facility. This design is for option 3A as was described to you in earlier meetings. Now, attached to the PSA, you'll find several exhibits, including Exhibit A, which is Parametrics scope of work, Exhibit A1, which is their proposed design schedule, Exhibit B, which is Parametrics proposed compensation, and the amount not to exceed $1,893,277.60. Also included is a detailed breakdown of how this fee was calculated. And keep in mind that $2 million has already been budgeted in the Sewer Capital Reserve Fund in the 2020 budget to cover this cost. Exhibit C is for Parametric Certificate of Insurance, which we have received. I've also attached two figures to the PSA. Figure 1 is a process schematic for liquid stream alternative 3A, and figure 2, which shows the construction sequencing for this chosen option. We're asking for your approval of this PSA so that we can begin design of the planned upgrades. As the design progresses, we'll be able to refine our estimate of the construction cost, and the current planning level estimate for this entire project, including engineering, is approximately $22.2 million, but we are just asking for the approval of the PSA for the design phase tonight. And also, before I sign off here, I just want to remind you that there is a tech team meeting being planned for April 22nd with several other funding partners, and the goal of this meeting is to put together a proposed funding package for the construction phase. Also online here tonight is Brian Bunker from Parametrics in case you have any technical questions. And if there's nothing else for me, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, council, you've had plenty of opportunity to look at these things and discuss them at Public Works Committee and at study sessions and at previous council meetings. Do you have questions for Brian or Pat on what is before you tonight? Right, Councilmember Blair.
The only question I have is 3A is the retrofit plan, correct? Is that going to cover any capacity that we're going to need well beyond anything that we're foreseeing at this time?
Did you hear the question? Brian, were you able to hear that question? It's about capacity, long-term capacity of the 3A option.
Sure, I can answer that question. So basically, we're going to build the facility such that we address all of the major infrastructure needs for the 20-plus year option. Concrete, which is the biggest element of this, will make use of the existing SPR basins for the most part. We are adding some compartments for the new MBR tank, as well as for additional equalization and for some of the mechanical equipment. But to answer your question, yes, we're going to build out everything we can for the long-term plan, which is to get to the 1.9 MGD. And in the first 10 years or so is what we think the first round of membrane cassettes in the first tank will be utilized. Once we reach capacity for that, we have the space to pop in the second round of improvements after 10 years. So the major elements of this project will be addressed all at once up front.
Does that answer your question sufficiently?
So the only part of that, doing the retrofit, is the space there, is that everything going to be, it's not going to require more space later?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Trina.
Thank you, Mayor. Brian, we had an offline conversation after the council meeting, a couple council meetings ago, regarding the capacity till 2045. Could you go ahead and talk about the population that could serve?
Sure. I'm going to need to actually open an exhibit that I've got that actually helps me to answer that question. But we are using Thurston County standards to help us actually project. Grant and I sat down and talked about what the best way was to do that. And we looked at planning forecasts and we came up with a projection for 2045, and that number is 2040, we're looking at a population be able to service 25,330 persons within the basin.
Thank you.
So as you get to 25,300, that's the number.
Thank you.
Councilmember Colt.
I got a couple questions, but I'll just ask one right now and then let another council member ask. When you're designing this, Brian, is there any ideas or any plans to make things proprietary in this? Whereas one of the parts might only be able to purchase through you versus going through someone else, and I'm you as in Parametrics. Is that how it comes when you guys design it?
In fact, one of the things we're trying to do is actually make everything as open as we possibly can. In fact, that was evidenced through some of the last improvements that we made as we were improving the SCADA at the plant and replacing programmable logic controllers. We like to use Allen Bradley products because they are the most readily available, and they tend to be the type of product that anyone can come in and work on. So no, the answer is we will absolutely try to steer away from that. In fact, if we have federal money to build this facility, we won't be able to do that.
Yeah, good point. Councilmember Carmody.
So this question can be to either Brian, Michael, or Pat. I just wanted to clarify that this proposal is just for the design process. This is not for the entire plant. This is just paying for the design process of it. Is that what I understand?
That is
Correct.
correct, through the bidding phase.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Cole.
So round two. So I'm just doing numbers and crunching here because I love that. I noticed that when it's 1.89 million, which is weirdly right how much money we had, like right around that exact same number. The second thing is I was looking at some of these numbers here, 10 meetings with the city at 248 hours, that at $51,000, that's $206 an hour. Mapping, 7,980 at 54, that's $160 an hour we're paying. I'm just wondering these numbers, the breakdown of the numbers and like kind of how this hourly wage correlates to these numbers I'm seeing on here.
I can tell you that, I mean, we're using rates that are rates that we have used with the city for the last several years. They've been escalated over time, but for the most part, they have maintained about the same breakdown. In terms of comparison, though, I think that'd be better to ask Matt to answer as to how he looks at our rates compared to others.
Yeah, I can address that. I've worked with parametrics ever since I've been to the city. These rates are pretty much in line with other projects that they've worked on and pretty much in line with other consulting firms that have done other projects. Obviously we've been looking at this with a fine-tooth comb over the last few weeks, so there's no surprises here to me. I would have brought that up before now, but I'm very comfortable with these rates.
$250 an hour.
So just to clarify, the one thing I was just kind of worried about is the 10 meetings with the city at $206 an hour. And that was the only thing that kind of shook me. Is like, wow, that's a lot of money to meet with the city when they're doing a project that we're signing with them. So if you're comfortable with it and that's something that's normal to charge someone $206 an hour to meet with them, I'm totally okay with that. I don't know the numbers and how they should look. And from where I'm, like, my standpoint is where I work is that's part of the, like, when we bid on something or we get something, we actually include meeting with them to update them on the project. We don't actually budget at 206, but if that's normal, then I'm taking your word for that, and I will.
So Cody, can I ask,
Yeah.
so are you suggesting that we do not include meetings?
No, I'm not saying we include meetings. I'm saying they're charging us $206 an hour to meet with us to update us on the project.
Yeah.
Which, if that's normal to charge someone $206 an hour, then okay. That doesn't seem like a normal number to me as a lower class person who doesn't meet with people that charge $206 an hour. So it just seemed really weird to me.
That much right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, if that's how much it is normally to meet with people, totally awesome, great. It was concerning to see $206 an hour to meet with the city you're doing work with, but.
I will say that is part of the process, though, in terms of us making sure that we understand the product that we are to deliver to the city. It's really important to get FaceTime with Pat and Bill and Jeremy and the staff to make sure that we're putting together a project that fully meets your needs. So those meetings are certainly to update you on projects, but at the same time, they really are an iterative process to get feedback on things that we need to change in the design, to get feedback on things that that need to be added to enhance the work. It's part of an iterative process, and we're not going to have meetings that we don't need to have. We can monitor that, and one of the options that we could use to keep that cost down would be to have more teleconferences, and Pat and I will be in contact quite regularly, just as part of the process. That will just happen. Those hours are part of the project. But if that meeting charge, we won't have meetings we won't need to have, I guess is what I'm getting at. We'll make sure that we're making the most of them, and that if we don't need to have face-to-face meetings, then we won't have face-to-face meetings.
Yeah, that's correct. We'll for the sake of efficiency, for all concerned, If face-to-face meetings aren't necessary, I think we've all found it more efficient to meet by telephone or teleconference or whatever works best. But Brian is absolutely right, especially during the early phase of this design. It's going to be very critical that we communicate on what kind of a product it is that we're gonna deliver. So these meetings are I would say are utmost importance, especially early on.
Joe first, then.
I think James had his hand.
Go ahead.
I would agree these meetings are important, but that kind of sounds to me more like a normal operation of your business and how you would go about doing it anyway, and more of a cost of business. Like for me personally, if I go and meet with a client, I'm not charging them to go and talk to them and update them on what's happening. So I'm kind of curious why there's a $200 some odd an hour for you to go and update your client on what's happening.
Well, like I said, it's about actually getting feedback, and at the same time also,
That all sounds like normal, what would normally happen in any kind of business relationship. You're gonna constantly get feedback and talk to your customer, but you don't charge them to do that. That's kind of what you do as a business, so why are we paying for that?
of a business that is producing widgets or selling a product, that the cost of that is built into the product. What we're doing is we're consulting with you in order to provide you a service. We don't make a product, we sell a service.
So I think what Brian is
I
just,
will do everything I can to cut that, to watch the amount of time that is spent on that, but we won't be having meetings and charging the city for meetings that are truly just about getting face time in order to promote and build our relationship. That absolutely is not part of this. These are technical meetings that will be geared around spending time at the plant. For instance, one of the very first meetings we have to have is we need to do an assessment of the site. So meeting number one is going to be spent at the plant most of the day. My mechanical lead, my electrical lead, my process lead are going to be walking around looking at things and verifying that the concepts that we're thinking about doing can be implemented the way that we have planned to do so. So those are technical meetings.
all right, thank you, Brian. Councilmember DePino.
Thank you, Mayor. I get their business model with the consulting fees. They are a consulting company, rather than a construction company or a different industry. I'm not so worried about that, but the concern that I have really is the telecommuting. My question is, if we can have these meetings over the phone or over the internet, are we charged a different rate?
The rate is the same. We try to actually vary some of the travel as best we can. I am not going to charge you to sit in my car and drive back and forth to Puyallup, but there is a customary cost to do that business, which we can remove that cost if that is of concern.
Yeah, I mean, just
Or
from
modify the rate.
I mean, just from my perspective, it seems like there's multiple council members here that do have a pretty big concern about that price and the way you're charging us. So yeah, I mean, if you could take that off, that'd be great.
Let's hear from Councilmember Wood. He'd had his hand up earlier, and then Councilmember Kaminsky, please.
Well, ultimately, I believe there's a misunderstanding. I don't believe any one of us feels that meetings are not important when it comes to the process of moving forward with this. I think what's clearly, I understand the question is, and it's a valid question, is if we're paying up front this total cost, which would, in any other case in doing business with any situation, it would seem even my attorney doesn't charge me a fee and then charge me on top of that. If he charges me a fee, it's a flat rate, and it covers what we're dealing with, or he charges me by the hour. It's not both, and I think that's what we're questioning here. It sounds like we're getting charged for both.
No, you're not. You're not being charged for both. The budget that is in front of you is a budget. Those were hours that we put together as our best guess as what it's going to cost to actually put these design documents together. You're not being charged a lump sum price for this. If we can be efficient about this, then it's going to cost less. This is a not to exceed budget that we presented to you, not a lump sum cost. And no, of course not. It would be against the law for us to double charge our hours. That is not what this is.
Councilmember Kaminsky?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when I book an appointment with my attorney, I'm charged, and when I book an appointment with my accountant, I'm still charged. So in this case, I think we need to trust in Pat, who's done this before, who's worked with this company, and I wouldn't wanna jeopardize the accuracy of something by them not coming to the plant and talking with us directly about what we need to do. So I'm okay with those charges, personally.
And I also throw in something too. I just wanted to remind you that anytime we receive an invoice, as project manager, I go over that invoice line item by line item before it's submitted to accounts payable for payment. So we need to have my review and approval before it goes in for payment.
Do you ever have
Joe.
Joe, sorry.
Pat, did you ever have?
Joe, excuse me.
Oh,
yeah.
you said go ahead. Sorry, my bad.
We called on, thank you.
My apologies.
So I'm with Terry on this. As a person who works professional services company, I understand the value of the education and the time and the knowledge that Parametrics has from its professional engineers. That's what we're paying for, is knowledge, and we're paying for expertise, and we're paying for years of experience here. And the only way that you're gonna get those years of experience is if they can have face-to-face or teleconferencing meetings with the city. I mean, they can't absorb knowledge in a vacuum. They can't learn in a vacuum, and the only way that they can learn what they need to know is by talking to Pat. And so for that reason, I think that I'm okay with these fees.
Councilmember DePino?
Yeah, I just had a question for Patrick. And sorry, Molly, Councilmember Carmody, I thought you said go ahead. Sorry, my apologies. Patrick, I was wondering, you said you looked over and before you sent them off to payables and all that, do you ever have any concerns? Do you ever stop stuff? Do you ever look at those line items and say, no, that's wrong before you? Has that happened before?
Oh, all the time, sir. I get invoices, and if I don't know what they're for, I always pick up the phone or email to question what's this for. That happens very regularly.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions, and it demonstrates that the council has been very thoughtful in looking at this contract and what Parametrics is bringing to this project. So, we can ask more questions, but when everybody's ready, you could consider an action on this.
I have one, because I have one final question. I heard Brian say he can drop the fees for the meetings. Was that something that was said? Joe, I believe I heard him say that. Is that correct?
I would be willing to reduce the travel or take the travel time out of that cost.
Travel time.
And I also heard him say that they would be careful in making sure that the meetings were essential, reduce travel time, and try to narrow that down, is what I was hearing him say.
Okay.
And if we can video conference more frequently, I think we're all in the middle of an experiment right now with the use of the technology that has been in front of us for a long time. And this is a great way to cut some of that cost, is to interact this way when we can, but it doesn't take away the opportunity to actually look at pumps and blowers and motors and VFDs.
Well, in that case, are we okay with making a motion?
You can make a motion, yeah.
All right, I'd like to, I move to authorize Mayor Foster to enter into an agreement with Parametrics to, for the design portion of the sewer project.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Roll call vote?
Roll call vote. Councilmember Wood, how do you
Aye.
vote? Councilmember Stillwell?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair? Councilmember Carmody, sorry.
Aye.
Councilmember Colt?
No.
Councilmember DePinto?
No.
Councilmember Kaminsky?
Aye.
Okay, that's a 5-2 vote. Motion carries. I'll sign the professional services agreement, and I'm sure that Pat and Brian and crew will be coming back on a regular basis to keep us updated on the progress of this very important project. Congratulations, council, on taking this historic action. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Pat, don't go away. We go back to our agenda, which is usually when I touch that thing, it goes right back to the agenda. There it goes. So next, and council, hopefully you received the 2 ordinances relative to the contracts for wastewater, sanitary sewer, and for water to look at. So those are the next 2 items of new business. Ordinance 1060 is to authorize me to enter into contracts for water utility customers who may fall behind in their payments due to the extenuating circumstances facing our community today. Councilmember DePinto.
Thank you, Mayor. Under section 1, letter C, it mentions all utility contracts, and there's some verbiage that is taken out and added. I'm just curious why city administrator was taken out and mayor or their designee was added to that.
So a lot of these are old languages that we've used, and we're trying as much as possible to make them look the same. So in the past, it was just when that last ordinance was written, it had city administrator, another might have mayor. The mayor is ultimately responsible for what the city administrator signs anyway, so they're just giving that authority. And then, of course, that would also go down to the mayor pro tem if I was absent.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions about,
Yes.
yes, Councilmember Carmody?
So I was looking this over, and I think it's a good idea, but honestly, I don't know if it's enough. I have been talking to another insurance agent in town, Tad, and he says that some of his clients, his residential clients, are actually canceling their house insurance and their home insurance and their life insurance because they can't afford groceries right now. If they can't afford their own insurance and they can't afford groceries, then I think it's a double whammy to slam these people with, 3 or 4 months of a water bill that's gonna be $500 or $600 by that point. And if this goes on for another month or another even 2 weeks, there's a lot of people that aren't getting paychecks at all for that whole month. And for them to be able to come up with rent and groceries and PSE and everything else that comes on top of this is going to be huge for so many people. And I would like to propose that we waive all city utility customers' fees for the months of April and May.
I'll respond to that in 2 ways. First, because we have an ordinance that needs to be looked at and voted up or down before we come up with a new proposal.
Okay.
And secondly, just remember that we are not allowed by RCW to gift public funds. That's the whole point of this, would be to work with our city customers to find a payment contract that could, over time, allow them to catch up. No more than PSE or the cable company or the phone bill or the grocery bill is going to give them a break or give it to them for free. what we've been encouraging our citizens to do during this crisis is to apply, if you are unemployed, to apply for unemployment benefits. The federal government has indicated that they're going to find some relief checks in the mail, and then there's going to be stimulus to the cities and to small businesses to help pay for these things as they go on. But if we encourage people by something like that to not pay their bills, then the city is going to be the one whose infrastructure fails and we won't be able to pay our employees. We can't fix this problem. We can work with our legislative partners to try to find solutions to it, but by waiving fees, we don't fix the problem. Councilmember Blair had a question or comment.
Question on the payment thing, or payment plans, that gives them a year, correct?
By this ordinance, yes, yes.
And what is that a year from?
We hope that this crisis is solved soon, and from the time that they regain a normal revenue source and they could start entering into a contract, that's when we would start the contract with them. So they might go 3 months, for example, and not be able to pay their water bill. We hope they can pay something into it, but at the end of that, when they find they have the revenue stream to pay, we can enter into a contract with them on that. It actually, by the tone of the ordinance, the wording of the ordinance, it starts at the moment that they first go into arrears. We would then set the contract language up with them.
So the other part, question I have, and this is a lot of my issue with the way cities are treated like businesses rather than government. Even if we were to waive charges at this time, that's not us giving anyone money, because the people in this town pay for the water, and they pay for all, they paid to build all of it, we all pay to run it. So if we decided to even waive specific people or just in general, that's not giving anyone money. So I don't think that applies to the giving away city funds. And a matter of fact, and Michael can probably answer, he shot this question to the auditor and we haven't got an answer yet. So I don't know if it's appropriate to say it is that until we have an answer on that.
Under normal circumstances, the answer is you can't waive fees for something because it is a gift of public funds in that they don't have to pay them. But under these extraordinary circumstances, the question Michael has asked of the auditor, does that give us the opportunity as a city to do something different than normal?
And Michael's microphone just went on, so he may have.
Michael, did you want to weigh in on that?
I was just going to echo what Councilmember Blair said. He proposed the same solution approach that Councilmember Carmody said, and as many of you know, there's the Washington State Constitution, and I think it's Article 8, Section 7, Article 8, Section 5, that has this gift of public funds doctrine. And I'll send you all the link, which was a helpful tutorial. I familiarized myself with this after Councilmember Blair asked this question, but one of their examples is, a local business has fallen behind on its utilities and is struggling financially. The business has been part of the community as far as anyone can remember. So the city decides to forgive the utility charges to help the business stay afloat. And they gave 2 other examples that were also considered a violation of that gift of public funds doctrine. That said, I asked the auditor, understanding what the entity, Councilmember Blair and Councilmember Carmody are trying, other mechanisms or policies could we consider without violating the Constitution and the state law, and therefore result in penalties from the auditor. So as soon as I hear back from them, I will let you know. And also this MRSC link for all of you about the Constitution. Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Councilmember DePino?
Thank you, Mayor. One authority we do have here on the council is to set water rates and set sewer rates, utility rates under our jurisdiction. So instead of waiving all our fees,
Right.
Why not adjust our rates currently to something 90% down or so? Cut it off 90% of the current rate paying right now. Make it $5 a month. and then council can adjust that in 1 month or 2 months or whenever the state of emergency is over. Obviously, this has a huge fiscal impact, so we shouldn't do this lightly, but I do believe that is one thing that we could consider.
Good idea.
Councilmember Carmody.
So I understand your example there, Michael, but I was wondering, I mean, that was just one customer that the city would be, gifting funds to. But in this case, it would be all the customers. Every single water customer in Yelm would be getting this benefit. And I don't see why that would hurt any one customer over any other customer. You're not giving preferential treatment to anybody over anybody. There's no protected class here, is what I'm saying. You're giving everybody the same treatment.
That sounds like it's in support of Councilmember DePinto's suggestion.
And that's why I reached out to the auditor, correct?
Councilmember Kaminsky, then Colt.
Do we even know if this is a problem yet? Have people started to not be able to pay their bills? And on the news today, the president is saying that he expects businesses to be open on April 12th. That's what they said. So this whole thing is a total of 30 days so far. So I don't think we should blanket tell people, no, you don't have to pay their bills. There's a lot of people that can't pay their bills, and so they don't need help. So is this even a problem yet?
I will answer that question in that we've received several calls from customers who, on the advice of the news media and others, have called in to all of their creditors and said, what can you do to help me during this time? Some haven't even lost their job yet. They're just trying to set the stage for what looks like success to them. I assume that they're also calling their other utilities, PSC and so forth, to get the same answer, to try to find, which bill do I have to pay first? And I'll just reiterate that it's not the city of Yelm's job to solve this national crisis. Be careful what you think of. I like the idea, actually, for a temporary fix to it, and it's spread over the entire city. But ultimately, I need a revenue stream to pay our employees. So we have to think of it both sides. And Finance Director McDonald would tell you that the reserves don't take us out that far in that regard. Council. Brett Beck.
To more detail on that question, the bills have just been sent to Data Bar, and they won't be due until the 15th
of April.
Of April anyway.
Right.
So it hasn't worked itself through yet.
But I think if people are having trouble, they can come to the city, make let us know, and then we can help those people that need help.
We could only if this ordinance is passed. Councilmember DePinto.
And then not only that, I mean, it's not that easy to go out in public right now. I mean, we're in a state of emergency in Washington State. We can't go out and about into a park, which brings up another thing later on that we might have to chat about for the Easter egg hunt. I don't know.
No,
But
Cancel off.
no one.
But I think we do need to take this seriously, very seriously. And I understand we can't solve this issue here for the country, but we can help alleviate some of the pressures, financial pressures for our constituents here in Yelm. And one action I think that, and you might not have heard from folks, but I know I have at least 3 that reached out to me personally about what's the city doing to help us out. I'm struggling from bills, losing my job. People are very concerned about this, and if you look on social media, you can see there too on the different Yelm groups how concerned they are. I do think this is something that we should take under advisement. Obviously, it is going to make a fiscal impact for our city, and we do need to pay the bills. But time is of the essence right now, so I don't know what the correct action is. Maybe council can figure it out by the end of this meeting, but I think one of the viable options is to lowering the water rates temporarily.
How long would it take? This would be probably.
Excuse me, I think Councilmember Colt had his hand up before.
Yeah, just a couple things. If we do decide to lower, which sounds like we're going, we just spent 1.89 million of the capital reserve in the sewer, so lowering sewer rates might not be as big of an option now, so just keep that in mind if we do have some kind of water rate move. The current proposal, should we, as I'm just asking for recommendation, should we move along with the current proposal and then make a new proposal for this, or should we just amend this current proposal we have, because it seems they're not in line with each other? They're 2 separate proposals. because one would apply and one wouldn't. So I feel like we should move ahead with the current proposal that's on the table.
So procedurally, I would
Yes.
agree with Councilmember Colt, is that tonight you have action items on carefully drafted ordinances that would give me the opportunity to enter into contracts with our customers should they get into trouble and seek that sort of assistance. That's what's before you tonight. You can vote it up, you can vote it down, you can kick it down to the next council meeting, because as Grant pointed out, this should not be a real problem for people until the 15th of April when their bills come due. And then that also gives you time to get your subcommittee together at the finance level to ask Finance Director McDonald's, I always want to say Roberts, Heidi, what that might look like and what we could tolerate as a city in as far as lowering the rates down. That would be a good conversation. You have several weeks to make that. So procedurally, that's where we are. First, Councilmember Blair, and then Councilmember.
I think, Molly, or.
Oh, did
you want to talk
you
to us?
jump back in? And then.
No, but you know what? I'm liking the way that this discussion is going. If we're okay with it, I guess the procedure would go, I move to authorize, and then we all vote how we feel on this particular one, and then authorize the mayor to start a new one, or, but I mean, what do we do here?
We have a couple options, if
Okay.
you can just take no action on this and it automatically reboots. So for lack of a motion, the action dies. Or you could make a motion to approve and go through that process, or you could make a motion to move both ordinances to a study session or the next council meeting for consideration. All three of those work. Councilmember Blair.
I have one more quick question. Now, this time payment arrangement, is this permanent even past this?
This is written to be specifically for the duration of this situation and would not give us authorization to enter into contracts outside of this.
That's the only thing that I would probably want to see change is,
I think I might be wrong. Get a diary.
Mayor Foster is not wrong. He may have misspoke slightly. The water contract is already in the code for high usage, leaks, that kind of thing. What we did is simply add a declared emergency. We currently don't have the authority to enter into a contract for sewer fees in the same situation. So this is actually adding the same ability for the mayor to allow people to pay overtime on their sewer bill as well as their water bill. And we use the same language so they're consistent for the same reasons.
currently it's, so if you can't pay it all due date, if you're able to get it, if you're able to get it under 100, then they don't shut you off and you have X amount of time to take care of it, which I think for most people is fine.
Cut our shut-offs from 75 down to about 7.
Yeah. I like this just for what's happening right now. I think we should continue the other conversation at the study session, because at that point we'll have a better idea of what's actually going on with the shutdown, the time frame of all that, and if it's really going to be needed right now. And also we can get some more information between now and then as far as what we can, how much we can of a hit we can take.
Did I get anybody out of order? Was somebody, were you waiting, Councilmember?
I would like to see these passed and then look towards that type of scenario, because we really truly don't know how this is what's gonna happen. It could be a week, it could be a month. We don't, maybe it's not a non-issue for people, hopefully. But this at least gives a safeguard, a safety net, and I think that was the intent. So if somebody misses a bill or two, they can spread that $10 a month over the next 12 months after that, for example, or 20, whatever it turns out to be. And then we can have the discussion, I think, at a study session. That's a lot of detail, and with everybody being gone, I don't think we can get that done in a week or in 2 weeks, as far as reducing rates and all that stuff. That's such a huge impact. I mean, we need to talk about it. I think it's a great idea. I really do, but I think it's important to get something like this done, get it in place. Hopefully it's a non-issue, but these are uncharted waters. We don't know. Nobody knows. We don't have a crystal ball, of course. So that's just my opinion. I think it's really important.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Pino?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Stillwell. This is a huge impact or a fiscal impact to the city. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here. By giving us some time, there's no reason we can't make this retroactive either. We could always say, you know, it takes effect on March 1st or whenever. So those people that are impacted, and if it's a longer period we need to do, we can do that. But this does give staff some time to prepare and get those numbers for us that we should have before we make this kind of decision. As far as the ordinance before us, I do agree. I think we need to do this and pass it. The only question I had was, is there an appeal process should they get denied?
Should who get denied for what?
If a person